as we get closer to Shabbat HaGadol and taking into account all the events that we've experienced during the last few weeks in particular, and in the last 2 years in general, I decided that this Shabbat HaGadol Derasha would be called the Seder When Night Turned to Day. As you heard from the song that was just playing, we start our formal Pesach the night before Pesach by checking for chametz. And when the Mishnah says that we have to check for chametz, it uses a very strange term. Or la'arba'asar botkim et chametz. The light to the 14th, you check the chametz le'or haner with use of a flashlight. When the Shulchan Aruch codifies it, he keeps that terminology. Dikatzricha shetiyeh le'or haner ve'lo le'or halevana. He's very pedantic to point out that you have to do it by virtue of a candle, a flashlight, and not by virtue of the light from the moon, which is the normative light at night. And the question is, why is it that it's so important that our formal Pesach experience starts with the word or, light? So let's go to the night afterwards. You open up Shmot, Perek Yud Bet of 12th chapter of Shmot, which talks about the Exodus from Egypt. And one question looms. When did they get out? On the one hand, it says, Vayehi b'chatzi halayla, exactly at midnight, God came and did the plague of the firstborn. Vayakom Paro Laila, Paro got up at night, and then Vayikra Moshe Aaron Laila, he called out to Moshe and Aaron at night, and he said, get out of here. And then the Torah ends by saying it's a Leil Shimurim, it's a night of guardianship. Hu halayla hazel Hashem shimurim l'chol b'nei Yisrael ledoratam. This is the night to God, called the Leil Shimurim, the night of God guarding us. So, if indeed you trust my 3 dots that you see on the screen, we got everything happen at night, and therefore there's the Seder night. But in that very same chapter, it says, "V'haya hayom hazeh lachem lezikaron v'chagotem oto chag laHashem." This day, not night, will be a day of Yontiv. And later on, "Ushmartem et hamatzot ki be'etzem hayom hazeh hotzeti yitzivotechem me'eretz Mitzrayim." You shall guard the matzos because on this day, not night, God took you out of Egypt. Later on, it says, "Vayehi be'etzem hayom hazeh yatzu kol tzivot Hashem mi'eretz Mitzrayim." And ends by saying, as we end the laning on the first day of Pesach, "Vayehi be'etzem hayom hazeh hotzi Hashem et bnei Yisrael mi'eretz Mitzrayim al tzivotam." So did they get out at night or during the day? And this doesn't stop in the 12th chapter of Shmot. It goes on later in the Torah, in Bamidbar, Perek Lamed Gimel, Pasuk 3. Ramesses b'chodesh harishon. They left Ramesses, Egypt, in the first month. When? B'chamisha asar yom lachodesh harishon, on the 15th. Mimochorat haPesach. The day after they ate the Korban Pesach on the Seder night. Namely, from our perspective, not Wednesday night, Thursday morning. On Thursday morning, after they ate the Korban Pesach, Yatzu b'nei Yisrael b'yad Ramah, they left Egypt. And yet, in the book of Devarim, Parshat Re'eh, it says, Shamor et Chodesh Aviv, keep the spring holiday. Why? Keep Chodesh Aviv, in this month of the spring, Hotziacha Hashem Elokecha miMitzrayim Laila, because God took you out at night. So did he take us out at night or during the day? And there's basically 3 answers to this question. I'm going to say 2 of them very quickly, and I'd like to delve into the third one. The first answer is what Chazal say in Masechet Brachot, Daf Tet Amud Aleph. Hakol modim shekeshenigalu Yisrael miMitzrayim lo nigalu ela b'erev. They were redeemed at night, but uchetsheyatzu lo yatzu ela bayom. But they actually left during the day. They were redeemed at night. They got their exit visa at night from Paro, but they actually left after they packed their suitcases during the day. ultimately ends by saying, Melamed shehitchila lehem geula mi ba'erev. The redemption started at night. They got their exit visa, but they only left in the morning. That's why the Torah says both night and day. In the Medrash of Rabbi Natan, he goes on and says that this was done because they wanted the Jewish people to live with a little bit of dignity. You want us to leave at night? What are we, a bunch of thieves that we have to sneak out? Ella, rather, said Moshe and Aaron, hamten lanu ad sheyavid lanu HaKadosh Baruch Hu, zayin ananei kavod, v'neitzeh b'hem b'simcha uverosh galui. We're waiting for the clouds of glory, and we're going to go out with happiness. We're going to go out with our heads held high, not run out in the middle of the night when no one's looking. Ramban on the Torah is able to sum up and say, Ki lo yatzu balayla kula min haaretz, ela shenatan lehem reshut latzet vayu b'nei chorein, aval be'etzem hayom hahu yatzu. In a word, they were able to leave at night, but they only left during the day. Answer number 2 is that actually they were able to leave at night if they so chose, but they decided to wait till the morning because they wanted to see their oppressors no longer. They wanted to see that the threat that threatened them as a people for so many years is no longer a threat. It says, Mesechet Smachot, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Ma'afal Pishi, Kalta Makat Mavin Michatzi Halayla, Hayanavsham Beparperet Bahem Adaboker. Namely, even though they knew there was a plague of the firstborn, their soul wasn't complete yet. And then the Gemara gets very graphic. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Amar, Odir Levanaya Mita Meshateket Azot Shesonehem Ha'ech Meitim Ba. I'm going to tell them that this terrible Mita Meshateket, this slow death that they were going through in Egypt, is over. Tishmor nafshotam ad haboker kedei shiyiru banai besonehem. Let's wait till the morning. There's light. They'll see all the Egyptians dead, their oppressors no longer, and that will be a full redemption. Very graphic description, but knowing what they went through, maybe it was important to see that their oppressors are no more. But I'd like to delve into the third answer. Not an answer that says they had the exit visas by night, but they actually left by day. And not the answer that says psychologically it was important for them to see that the Egyptians were dead, but rather what we say in Kiddush Levana and hope for every single month. We would like the light of the moon to be as strong as that of the day of the sun. The third answer is that the Torah intentionally mixed up day and night, and it did so for a reason, in order to blur the differences between what we know as night and what we know as day. This happens to be a medrash of Chazal. The medrash at Shmot Rabbah says, Halayla hazeh simcha lechol Yisrael shenehemar leil shimurim. This night is called Leil Shimurim, and it's a very happy night. Why? Maybe that night's miracle was a once-in-a-lifetime miracle, the slaying of the firstborns and leaving Egypt. But la'atid lavo, in the future, halayla na'asa yom. I repeat, halayla na'asa yom. The night will turn to day. Shene'emar v'haya ora levana ke'ora chama ve'ora chama yiyeh shivatayim. This is what the Zohar says explicitly, that night, the light of the moon was so bright that it was like the long days of Tammuz, of the summer, where it takes a long time till it gets dark. And the pasuk from Tehillim, V'layla kayom ya'ir, the night will be as lit as the day. Kechashecha ke'ora. Night will be like day, totally. Darkness will be like light. What does that mean? The night will be like day. What does it mean at the end of the Seder? When after everything we do, the 4 cups, eating of the matzah, leaning, telling the story, saying Hallel, we come before HaKadosh Baruch Hu and we say in that famous piyut, Karev Yom, the day is coming near, Asher Hu Lo Yom Velo Laila. It will not be defined by the normative way we think of day and night. I believe that the Seder night is the one night a year which is like day. It may be on your watch what we call after nightfall, but it's like day halachically. And I'll give halachic proofs to what I say. Number 1, the timing of the Korban Pesach. The Gemara in Pesachim Daf Nun Chet Amud Bet says that every single Korban has to be sandwiched between the Tamid Shel Shachar and the Tamid Shel Ben HaArbaim. So if by mistake you did a violation of Shabbos and you have to bring a Korban Chatat, it has to be brought between the Tamid Shel Shachar and the Tamid Shel Ben HaArbaim. Ve'yiktir alav chilvei hashelamim aleh hashlem kol korbanot kulan. All the korbanot have to be between these two, Tamid Shel Shachar and Tamid Shel Ben HaArbaim. As the Ramban says, Shenitztavenu lahakriv kol hakorbanot ben shnei hatmidin. There's only one exception. The Mishnah in Pesachim, beginning of the 5th chapter, says that on Erev Pesach, they would bring the Tamid and then they would bring the Korban Pesach. The only Korban not sandwiched within the Korbanot of the day, namely the opening of business of the Beis HaMikdash, the closing of business of the Beis HaMikdash, is the Korban Pesach. As the Rambam codifies, Tamid Shel Shachar lo yakdim oto shum korban, ve'tamid shel ben ha'arbaim lo yitacher acharav korban b'shum panim, ela korban Pesach. So Korban Pesach is like exterritorial. It's not brought at a time that's day, between Tamid Shel Shachar and Tamid Shel Ben HaArbaim. It's brought at its own time, a time that cannot be defined as either day or night, and therefore it's not brought within the Korbanot of the daytime between the Tamid Shel Shachar and Tamid Shel Ben HaArbaim. Proof number 2. There is one night a year and only one that we do something very strange. We say Hallel. Some say Hallel in shul with a bracha, and everyone says Hallel at the Seder. Gemara in Erchin, Daf Yud, Amud Aleph into Amud Bet, comes along and says that in Israel there's 18 days that we finish the Hallel, counting Yom Tov HaRishon Shel Pesach, the first day of Pesach, and the Gemara in Megillah, Daf Kaf Amud Bet, and the Mishnah says Kol Hayom Kasher, the whole day is okay, Likriyat Hallel, to say Hallel. Hallel is during the day. However, Rashi in Pesachim Daf Tzadik Hey Amud Aleph says, Ve'en lecha lelei chag alatin shira chutz milelei Pesachim al achilato. There is only one night that we say Hallel at night, and that is the Seder night. As the Gemara says in Mesechet Sofrim, indeed there's 18 days we finish Hallel during the day, but Yom Tov HaRishon Shel Pesach ve'leilo. ומצווה מן המובחר לקראת את ההלל בשני לילות של גלויות ולברך עליהן ולא אומרו בנעימה. As we could see, maybe it's not exactly night, because night is void of Hallel. Maybe the Seder night, as we call it, doesn't have a status of night, because we say Hallel, which we should only do during the day. More than that, this is the only time that something becomes notar in the middle of the night. Notar means that the time to eat the sacrifice has finished. And if it's in a pot, the pot becomes treif and you have to kasher it. Well, we all know that when it comes to the Korban Pesach, Michatzot havelei notar, says the Gemara in Pesachim Daf Kuf Kaf Amud Bet. Never do we have that. We have notar where it becomes notar the next morning. But we never have a situation where you take the night, you divide it in half, and at chatzot at midnight, all of a sudden something becomes notar. Indeed, lechatchila, we finish the afikomen by chatzot, because that's when the korban pesach lechatchila should have been eaten by. We don't look at that night as a normal night because we never divide up the night between before chatzot and after chatzot for notar, except for this korban pesach. Another proof, Kriyat Shema Lamita. Every night you say Kriyat Shema before you go to sleep, and yet on the night of the Seder, the Ramah paskins, Nohagim Shelo Likrot Al Mitato, Rak Parshat Shema, V'lo Shar Dvarim Shekorin B'Shar Leilot. Yes, we'll say Shema, and that's it. Don't say all the rest of the psukim that have to do with night, because halachically it may look like night, but it's not night. And finally, the famous halacha, you can't start the Seder early. The opening Tosfos in Perek Arvei Psachim says that even though on every Shabbos and Yontiv you can do an early Shabbos and Yontiv, by the way that includes Shavuos, still, when it comes to the Seder, Ba'inan Anshe Techshach, Gedetnan Tanya Batosefta HaPesach Umatzah Umaror, Mitzvatan Mi Shetechshach. You can only begin when it gets dark. That's the way the Shulchan Aruch paskins. Lo Yomar Kiddush Shetechshach on the night of the Seder, and explains the Magen Avraham, just like the Tosfot said that Pesach is intertwined with the matzah, matzah is intertwined with the maror, our arba kosot are intertwined with all of that. Bottom line, you can't start the Seder early. In other words, you can't have a situation where outside it's still day. You have to have a situation where outside it's dark, and yet inside your home, you're acting like it's a day. You're eating a korban that was brought after the Tamid Shel Ben HaArbaim. It becomes notar at chatzot, in the middle of the night, a very strange time. Not to mention the fact that we say Hallel at night and not Kriyat Shema Lamita because it's not really night. And I believe all of this leads us to one conclusion. At the beginning of this war, I quoted to the community the pasuk in Micha, Perek Zayin, pasuk Tedvav, that says, Ki yemei tzeitcha mi eretz Mitzrayim erenu niflaot. Like back in Egypt, I will show you miracles. In Egypt, on that fateful night, the division between night and day was blurred. It was blurred because of the miracle that happened that night, and it was also blurred because of the description we read about that night, in which we can't get a clear answer. Was it night or day the Jewish people left? It may have been night on the watch, but there was activity outside as if it was the middle of the day. And if Micha prophesizes that in the future we will experience a redemption like in Egypt, then that redemption will be the same. We may think it's dark and dangerous, and yet there's lights as if it's the middle of the day. There's lights of redemption all around us, despite the fact that on a very simple level, we're going from siren to siren, and we're trying to keep our personal safety and our communal safety. The historic events that are happening around us are the very opposite of a dark night where nothing happens. If anyone could have imagined 2.5 years ago that we would be coming into a Seder, Sinwar and Nasrallah and Khomeini are all in Gehenna. Would you have imagined that the Jewish army, led by Jewish pilots, are able to fly to Iran and back, not once, not twice, not 3 times, but endless times in order to secure the Jewish people? We sometimes are blinded by the sirens and by the damage and the real casualties and tragedies of war. But at the same time, it may look like night, but historic events of day are happening each and every moment. And all the various prophecies for the future say that. For example,
the light of the moon will be like the light of the sun. On the day that God will be able to bandage all the various cuts that cut into the Jewish people.
In Yeshayahu, when it says, Lo yiyelecha od hashemesh leor yomam ulenoga hayareach lo ya'ir lach. No longer will you have this division between day and night, but rather, Vayalecha Hashem leor olam ve'lo hayich letifartech. Hashem will be an eternal light. And finally, pasuk in Zecaria, Vaya bayomahu, Yivadala Hashem lo yam velo laila, Vayala et erev ye'or. No more, no less, in the future, it will no longer the division between day and night, but rather, at night there will be light. Every year, on the night of the Seder, you're going to see a glimpse of what's going to be in the future. Because in the future, it will no longer be a division between day and night. You won't have highs and lows. You won't have a situation of an intertwining of tragedy and triumphantness. In the future, there will be only light and no darkness. As the Medrash says in Yalkut Shimoni, this is not the case today. Person's happy in this world, but it's not a full happiness. After all, we have worries. Someone's born, you're worried. Will they make a living? Will they get married? Etc. HaKadosh Baruch Hu mevaleh hamavet hanetzach. In the future, there will be no death. There will be no one hit by missiles and have, God forbid, a situation of being taken from us so young. We will have no more casualties. We will have no more of this intertwining between mourning and happiness, but rather, that simcha will be complete, total light, no darkness. Shene'emar, az yemales chok pinu l'shoneinu rina. And therefore I believe that every year we are sitting at the Seder table and acting as if it's daytime. It may be dark outside. There's still a war. There's still alerts. There's still casualties. But inside the house, it's the halachos of the Seder put us in a mood that ultimately we're acting as if it's the day. We're saying Hallel like it's the daytime. One day, indeed, Karev Yom, Asher Hu Lo Yom, Velo Laila. And on that day, when that happens, then ultimately, this so-called machlokes, when did they get out of Egypt, will no longer be a machlokes, because the light of redemption will be so strong, we won't see the darkness. We start Pesach the night before Pesach, or La'arba Asar, the light to the night. And God willing, as we light that flashlight to start checking for chametz, we have to think in our minds and hearts that this light is going to be what will be in the final redemption. If indeed ki yemeit seitcha mieretz mitzrayim me'esenu niflaot, maybe now we need a flashlight, and it's vital to have it. But in the future, the light will be so strong that there will be no darkness. Wishing everyone a Chag Sameach v'Kasher in every which way, and in Mirza Hashem, we should get closer and closer and closer to the day that will not be Lo Yom ve'Lo Laila, v'Haya le'et erev yihiyeh or.
שלא יחד אחד בבדו מדלייני שלא יחד אחד בבדו מדלייני שלא יחד אחד בבד שלא יחד אחד בבד מדלייני לחלסייני